Hello again. Last week I tried my first video post, an author's event. It seemed to have gone quite well. Better than I expected. So today we're going to do another one if we can, if you're willing to sit with me here. And I was asked if I could perhaps do a reading. Now, in my author's events, I typically read whatever book I'm promoting at the time. So if I were to do a regular author's event, I would be reading from the opening of Elizabeth's Journey, which is a book I released in November. But this is a different kind of situation, isn't it? A different kind of media. So I thought perhaps I would read something that I wrote in what I call dead time. Dead time is the writing time you can't work on the project you're really working on. There's something in the way. Maybe it needs to go to the editor. Maybe you just need to stop working on it or whatever. And that period, when you're not working on the project that you have been working for months, this break in the action, shall we say, is what I call dead time. And you might think that'd be a good time to take a break or away from writing, but I feel that a writer needs to write. And also, when I was working months and months on this particular Misty Creek, I believe it was a project when I worked on this particular piece that I'm going to read today. I'd been working on it for 2-3 years. I was waiting for an opportunity to write something new. And so an idea came to me, and it's called Severed Ties. And it's a story about 10-year-old Michael Carter. And the rest will come to play. And I'll read the first few pages. Mike Carter sat in seat 17F on a 737 bound for the West Coast. Though it wasn't his first commercial flight, for Products Research Corp had sent him all over the country, this trip was different. For one thing, he'd paid the fare. For another, it was personal, very personal. Turning toward the window, he did not notice his reflection, the graying hair that fringed the ever-growing open skin of his scalp. He looked beyond the silver wing to the fluffed blanket of white that hid the world below. He sat unaware, at least for the moment, that he was surrounded by a plane filled with a wide variety of humanity. Their hushed voices, the sense of bodies held confined for hours, the constant scream of the engines. Though Mike looked out and remembered another window, another time. The bus had roared down the 2-lane highway across Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. During the day, he had seen the prairie lands he knew, and he watched the open spaces move past, while he wondered what his destination would provide. Or would it provide anything? Mike felt cast off, put on the bus and sent away. Yes, he had been given his instructions where to change buses, where he was bound, Westville, Indiana. There were supposed to be people waiting there to gather up the tossed aside strangers, his mother's parents. But that made the whole situation worse. For 3 months before, his beautiful mother had died, and now, as he thought of that passing, he recognized that his father had died as well. No, Patrick Carter had kept right on breathing, but the man's life had ended, certain as his beloved lay resting beneath the sod. Patrick could not function, could not deal with the ordinary things like paying bills or taking care of his 10-year-old son. Things began unraveling the first week, and as time passed, the string continued to grow into tangled masses of the undone. Mike never complained. not about the meals unmade, of piles of laundry everywhere, of his father's almost continuous absence, or the alcohol-induced slurred profane words. He didn't complain when his father drove a fist through the wall or threw his mother's photograph across the room. Mike had gathered that picture behind the broken glass, the dented metal frame, a sign of the event. It was among the few possessions he had gathered to take with him. It was wrapped carefully within the jeans in his suitcase. As they rumbled through the day, Mike took no notice of the others that rode. He didn't want to see them, the faceless silhouettes that sat through the mind-numbing hours. He didn't see them because he didn't want them to see him. If they saw him, really saw him, they would know. Mike didn't want them to know that his mother had died, that his father had sent him away. Staring out the window, he could not say exactly what he felt. Afraid, maybe? If it wasn't so hurt and angry. Confused? Yes, confused. His dad had always done what was best for them. That is, before Patrick's smile had faded into history. But Mike was a kid, just a kid, 10. How could he know why grown-ups did things? Sometimes stupid things. If he had time, maybe he could have convinced his father that sending him away was wrong. Mike didn't want to go. Everything he knew was there. And in that house, he could still find his mother. The small porcelain dogs she loved on the shelf in the dining room. Mike remembered how carefully she had held each one as she wiped the dust that seemed to stick to their smooth brown glassy skin. At first she did not seem she had really left them. The scent of baking blended with ammonia she used to clean had hung in the kitchen as always. It faded as the days became weeks. But there are still things, her things. A scarf that hung near the back door. Most of her clothes remained in the bedroom closet. Her shoes there as well. The small bottle of perfume on the dresser. It was as if she had just stepped out. But Mike knew his mother wasn't coming back, and he would have to live with that. But Mike had no time to prepare for this change, no time to debate rights and wrongs of goings or saying. It had been dark early, Mike thought, when his dad came into his room, threw his suitcase on the bed, and told him to pack. You're going to your grandparents. But why? He'd ask. 'Cause I said so. With that, the man Mike trusted more than any other turned, get to it and hurry. Patrick stepped out, leaving the door open. No, Mike didn't want people to know. The trip had taken them through more towns than Mike could remember. When at last he heard the driver call out Westville, exhausted, he knew he had reached the end of the ride. Westville had no bus station. Never did. And Mike found himself standing on the sidewalk in front of Watkins Hardware, beside a tall man wearing a brown suit. A few others stepped off. A woman holding the hand of a girl, not so much younger than he was, in a yellow dress. They walked swiftly away in the hot afternoon sun. A man, not too old, certainly not as old as the one that stood waiting next to Mike, stormed off with a scowl on his face, pushing aside the woman and her child in his passing. As Mike stood waiting, he stared at the Trailway logo that stretched most of the bus's length, the red stripes and letters beneath the very window that had been his position for hours. The driver, a burly man dressed in his sweat-stained white shirt bound with a thin black tie, pulled a light brown suitcase that appeared made of woven bamboo strands, handing it to the brown-suited man. When all the others had, it seemed, vanished, a man placed Mike's old, worn, red-brown case, a cheap, vinyl-covered affair with rusty metal corner reinforcements, in the boy's hand. "You going to be all right, kid?" Mike just nodded, unsure if it were true. If Mike did not feel alone before, which he did, the departure of the bus took the last link to his past with it. He stood sweating in the sun, wondering what he should do. He had just set down his suitcase when a blue-gray four-door pulled up to the curb. The man that exited looked across the roof, his face taut and eyelids drawn down part way, said, "You Michael?" Mike nodded. The man was younger than Mike would have expected, taller too. "You my grandfather?" "Who else would I be?" "Get in." Mike hesitated. 1,000 thoughts passed through his mind. "You getting in, or are you gonna walk?" Mike drew a breath, opened the door. "Throw your bag in the back seat and let's get going." And that's the opening couple pages from Severed Ties. Anyway, we've used up our time today, and I hope that you enjoyed our few minutes together, that you are able to stay well and safe. And so, until next time, you have a good day.